Alright, we are in Chapter 4, Lesson 2. And this lesson is just going more over what you did in Lesson 1 in terms of tile patterns. When writing rules for a tile pattern, we have to first look and see what it's growing by every time. Many different ways you can do it. I personally am going to look at what am I doing from figure 1 to figure 2 and then figure 2 to figure 3, just like in the previous video. So for figure 1, I notice I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which means I added 2. Then I'm going to look and see, up top I have 2, but here I have 3. So I'm going to shade in this one right here to show me that that's what I added there. And then I'm going to look at the bottom row, 3, and there's 4. So then what I'm going to do is shade in this one right here because that's the one I was adding on the bottom. And like we said earlier, I was going from figure 1 to figure 2 and I went from 5 to 7, which means I added 2. So I should have 2 shaded in. Same thing if I go from figure 2 to figure 3. If I look, I have 4 up top now, and I have 5 on the bottom. And I went from 3 to 4, so again I added 1 up top. And then same thing on the bottom, I went from 4 to 5, so I added 1 on the bottom. So my growth each time is going to be 2. So if I write my rule, I'm going to write it as y equals 2x. Remember, our y is our number of tiles, and x is the figure number. Now I have to figure out what my plus b is. Remember, our plus b is what we start with every time, and that's always our figure 0. I don't have a figure 0 up here, so I have to think, how could I go backwards? Well, I know, based on these previous two, that to get from figure 0 to figure 1, I had to add 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom, which then leaves me with just these 3 in an L shape for figure 0. So that means figure 0 really just looks like that, which means I have 3 tiles in it, so it'd be y equals 2x plus 3. You're not always given figure 0, you may have to work backwards in order to figure out what it would be. If you're just given a table, we can still figure out what the rule is going to be. Remember, M is always our growth, what we're going up by every time, and B is what our starting value is when x is 0. Well, for this one, it's a little bit easier because I automatically know that when x is 0, my y is 1. So that means my b is going to be 1. So I know it's going to be something x plus 1 to start with. Now what I have to do is I have to look and see, well, what's happening every time to my y values. You can always think of it back in terms of tiles. That's what I do to try to help make more sense of it. So from 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 9, I'm adding 2 every time, which means my growth is going to be 2x. Now, the only thing I will say is that sometimes we forget and we flip and we try to put our 2 where our 1 is and our 1 where our 2 is. So always make sure to double check yourself by plugging in your x value. And what I mean by that is I can do 2 parentheses whatever x value I want. So let's say 3 in this case, plus 1. And that's going to give me 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 gives me my 7, which directly lines up with the 7 that I have where my y value is. Now, if I accidentally flipped them and I did my 2 and my 1 and I switched them to just show you how it wouldn't work, I would do 1 times my 3 plus 2, and 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 gives me my 5, which is not what I have right here. So that's a way you can double check to make sure that your rule is written correctly based upon your table.